Okay.
Click on whatever you have to there.
Oh, that's right. I have to. Have to consent. My consent has been given.
Sold your soul to the devil, and now you'll be a great guitar player. Perfect.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, so, in the sounds of silence, when I'm looking at this,
Okay.
there are some cue words here over over the over the picking or the music. On Scarborough Fair, there isn't, and so one of the things that I was going to do, because we're working on Scarborough Fair because of the timing and all that,
Yeah, yeah.
is I'm trying to sing this in my head while I'm playing it,
Okay.
and that's I'm having trouble doing that. So I was gonna I wanted to work on that
Sure.
to try to figure that out, and then like I'm sure that I'm gonna morph my way into Sounds of Silence here
Yeah.
as well as I'm inspired by that.
Two quick comments. First, so he was quite a bit lower in Sounds of Silence. You probably noticed that.
Oh, Sounds of Silence. I think he was capo too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he was down here.
the same chords, but I think you could figure out everything he did in that introduction. Is what I'm getting at because he he opens up with the same set of notes. Where's my cue?
Yeah.
He opens up with the same set of notes, right?
No.
Yeah. Um, and then he just picks out the melody a whole octave lower. Do 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 do.
Okay.
And then and occasionally noodles with the chord. So you know that the first chord would be A minor, right?
Right.
And so find that melody note. Do 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 do.
So is it?
Oh, okay. So there you go. That's part of your assignment for this week. Is
Okay.
figure out that whole introduction he did because that's all he did. He picked out the melody. Start to see. Anyway, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can see he's not doing anything exotic, going to any place, so that he doesn't have any notes on his guitar that you don't have.
Right.
And but I bet you could really piece together that intro, and you just did something there that was really good, and that was, you could you didn't try any notes that were not in the key when you were looking for melody notes right there. And one of the first things I was going to say is make sure you've played, you know what key you're in, and like what scale you're going to use. This is in the key of C or A minor, so you want to make sure that you're thinking of an A minor scale. Maybe all the way down to G.
Okay.
And that's going to be the range, probably from a low G up to maybe a B or something like that, of what he played.
Okay.
Um, the first part of the melody he sang was unusual. It wasn't the same. He was kind of singing a harmony part there. You go back and listen. It's like, "Ah, wait, that's not how I hear the melody." And then later on, he kind of gets on it. Now I'm not sure how intentional that was, or even how rehearsed this was. This was probably not very. He doesn't play this like every day to figure out how he can play it differently and wow the audience with it. I don't. I wouldn't be surprised if this was just like off the cuff that he pieced this together.
Yeah.
And then it's how he plays it now, 50 years later, or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I'll watch a little further and see if there's something unusual going on with the strumming that you're talking about in there too. If you want me to do that, but I think this is just getting that intro should be right up your alley of stuff that is
Okay.
yeah. Let me check a little further now.
That's the streets of narrow streets of cobblestone, with the halo of a street lamp, to my cloud to the cold and down. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light, what's my
This is really cool.
touch the sound of sound. Little baby lies on 10,000 people.
Yeah, so you're right. You know, you can definitely hear that. That's on an A minor that he does that. Do do do. And then on a lot of the G chords, the little embellishments are all notes that are really easy to reach. Like, you know, a common thing to do on a G chord is bring a C in here.
Uh-huh.
And he does that in there as he gets into this strumming thing. But yeah, was that where you're talking about, like what you hear on that A minor with that?
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, yeah. Complete. He lets go of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. The whole stuff.
Is that a? Is that? Is there some?
The musical reason that works is, first of all, two of the notes continue ringing. The lowest one and the highest one we still hear the A in the bass and the E on the top.
Yeah.
But those three middle notes, when you take them off, that kind of implies a quick change to what chord. Those three open strings are all part of what chord?
The three open strings.
When you take the fingers off.
Okay, when I take the finger. Oh, I see. When I mean these three.
Yes, those three open strings that you just took your fingers off.
Okay, when I take my fingers off. Well, they were part of the A minor.
Right? But when they're open, what chord are they part of?
Oh, they're part of the G.
Right. So see, all that's doing is hinting at a chord that we hear all the way over this song anyway. That's why this sounds okay.
Okay.
You know? Whereas, do that with an E chord.
Okay.
It's not as kind of melodious flowing there because of one particular note. And you probably couldn't hear it very well when you were doing this, but hearing those open strings has a little bit more of a clash than it does on the A minor,
Yeah.
because on an E chord we have G sharp.
Right.
And taking that off to hear a G natural in the next chord is not or in that open chord is not a note that would be in any key that has a G sharp in it.
Right.
So it's crossing key boundaries, kind of,
Okay.
that the A minor chord doesn't. All those notes that you take this off for are part of the key,
Right.
and it's it's hinting at a G chord. So that's why it's okay to do that, or that's why that's why it sounds different than if you did it on some other chords. Now this is a completely guitar trick that. This would be a lot of work for a piano player to do, is to change those three notes down to the equivalent of the open things that quickly. But it's just one of the normal things that a guitar is easy to do on a guitar and sounds really cool, but doesn't translate very well to a keyboard. That quick a change, it'd be real clumsy. Not that good piano players couldn't do it, just that it wouldn't have this kind of subtle effect that it has on the guitar. It'd be a big deal on the piano. It'd be more in your face.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But it's definitely cool everything he's doing there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Paul, you still got it. I think he was in the birthday column not too long ago.
He's got to be 80, right? I mean,
I
over.
want to say 81.
Yeah.
80 or 81, something like that.
Yeah.
And a couple times, like right at the very end, where you stopped it there, after the 10,000 people, maybe more line, which he sort of, I think he inserted an extra measure there.
People were clapping. He had to wait for them.
Yeah, he waited for him. Yeah, sort of seamlessly. Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's the other ones on there that he does with some guy by the name of Nate Ratliff, who I don't know. Nate Ratliff. So it's the Newport Folk Festival, so Nate must be big in that world. But he does Boxer with Nate Ratliff, actually, and a whole bunch of other people end up on the stage for that too. And then he does. There's a woman that. Oh shoot, what's her name? I can't think of it. My short-term memory is not very good.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Anyway, there's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and they're pretty interesting. And a lot of them, you can it's camera on him, and he's playing the guitar, so kind of nice.
That's interesting. I'll definitely watch the rest of that set later today. Some of those songs have got to be very difficult for him to sing. I mean, the Boxer, he needs people to help him with that because he can't hit those notes, unless he's got the guitar. And the Boxer is not a song that you can just, you can't just, although I did this with a student, Sandy, we transposed it to G. You can't just take it down like a couple of steps, like to A or something, and have all the cool guitar stuff that happens in it. And so it doesn't translate very well or transpose very well to go into a lower key like he did with this. He brought it down a step and a half from the original, to because he can't hit those notes anymore.
Yeah, where he can sing it. Yeah. I thought it seemed like that was part of the reason in the very beginning that you called it singing the harmony part.
Yeah.
He couldn't sing. I don't think he could sing the. There was a duet in the.
It kind of was, and not the first verse wasn't. It wasn't until like the second verse they came in with harmony, and the harmony. I haven't really analyzed it a lot, but a lot of the harmony is very basic. To the sound that it was keeping. Sometimes it's the same note held for like 6 or 8 notes in a row. More like you'd hear a tenor or a tenor voice in a 4-part in a choir thing. One of the middle voices that wouldn't carry the melody, and it just adds in notes of the chords. And sometimes, like in a couple of cases there, when he's just changing back and forth between C and F chords, sometimes the singer might just be hitting the note C on both those chords because it's in both chords.
Yeah.
And so I'll definitely take a look at those later and see what other insight I could have for you.
Is the harmony part, is the singing harmony part always a certain distance or a certain distance or?
That is a Pandora's box kind of question, but it's because there are tons of different ways of doing this, of lots of different approaches to harmony. And I was just talking to Jim Bruno, the vocal teacher at our camp. What are you doing the second week of September? This is going to be one of the classes we have at camp, is vocal harmony.
Uh-huh.
And he's going to be talking about bands and the different approaches that people like the Everly Brothers took and the Beach Boys. And he said, the Beach Boys basically used barbershop quartet style harmony, which is like 4 parts. And if you just heard one of the parts that was not the main melody, you might not even recognize the song. What the bass player, what the bass singer and the tenor singer sing. And so that was kind of Brian Wilson's approach. The Beatles and the Everly Brothers typically did something more like what you just asked, where they would now right there was harmony played basically in thirds. So that's what I just did there, was played like the 2 vocal parts you hear in there. But one of them is doing something like this. Oh man. man, this is way out of my key. Do 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 do. Where I was singing, I started on the third of the chord, the B. I bless the day I found you, and the other voice would be starting on the fifth of the chord. I bless the day I found you. I want to stay around you. Now, see, when you hear that, it almost sounds like, wow, that doesn't sound like the right melody.
Right.
That was the harmony part. You know,
Okay.
at least the way I hear it. So when I hear that, what is that called? Let It Be Me.
Yeah.
I kind of hear the lower part. The first one I sang. I bless the day I found you. I want to stay around you. Right? But the harmony part, so that was all starting on B. And the harmony part starts on D. I bless the day I found you. I want to stay around you now and forever. You know, something, anyway.
So the harmony part, I mean, we don't need to go too far.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
The harmony part in that case, it maintains the same spacing throughout.
Yeah. And what happens is, pretty much, it stays a third above the melody note, unless if the melody gets to the fifth of the chord, then it usually jumps up to the root of the chord, which would be a fourth away. But it stays on a note of the chord, because otherwise it would be hitting, if the melody's hitting a fifth and the harmony stays at thirds, it would be hitting a seventh, which is not unheard of. It's just that would change you would hear a seventh now in the chord that they maybe don't want.
I got it. Okay.
So typically that's what happens is in that style, Everly Brothers style harmony, and this really, they got this from the Carter family going back to the 30s. This was like backwoods harmony. One guy sings a line and somebody else sings a note just a little bit above it. Usually that would be a third. But the Everly Brothers really perfected it with first of all, with the timbre of their voices, because they sound like the same person more or less, you know. And so that blending was really cool. And then, but that was their typical approach. Then there are bands like the Beatles and Crosby, Stills and Nash who frequently did 3-part harmonies. And sometimes if you hear something like Sweet Judy Blue Eyes,
Yeah.
getting to the point.
Yeah.
Well, go back and listen to, when you listen to that, what you typically hear is Nash's voice because it's the highest one. And when you try to sing that song with him, you have no chance of hitting those notes. It's like, God, he's singing high, Same thing with Beatles. A lot of times you'll hear McCartney's voice in the mix, and it's the highest one, which is going to be typically the hardest one to sing. And John's voice, which is usually lower, almost always lower than Paul's, but they did a lot of Everly Brothers type things where they would be maybe a third apart, but they were a lot more creative. Paul had them doing very unusual things in so many aspects, but including in harmony stuff that they sang too. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of different things. And again, just a couple days ago, I was talking to Jim, our vocal guy, and about classes that people have asked for at camp, and we brought this one up. He says one of the classes he'll do on one of the mornings will be absolutely this, and talk about take 3 or 4 different songs and show what the Everlys did and what the Beatles did and stuff, and then even have the class learn maybe both parts of something. Oh, and we talked about Simon and Garfunkel because they were heavily influenced by the Everly Brothers. So that was anyhow. So yeah, so harmony is you could spend a whole lifetime working on singing harmony. So I'm going to stick to guitar playing.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
Scarborough Fair. Scarborough Fair. Yeah. Scarborough Fair. Now you're right. You now have to mentally transfer the to 6/8 time here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, this is not in 6/8.
It's not.
It's a 6-beat pattern like Hallelujah. And Hallelujah is in 6/8, but Scarborough Fair is in 3/4 with the same type of pattern. And so this was one of the things I was talking about on that news the other day.
Okay.
Okay, make sure to use all three fingers. You're trying to use your second finger on two different strings.
There we go. Yeah. Need this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so hang on. One more thing. Play that first chord with these two fingers on your left hand, not the two you had. Go with your play it like a C chord. Play a C chord,
Oh, okay.
and then slide those fingers up. That's the fingering. That's the fingers we want to use for this.
Okay.
That'll make the introduction that you played much easier. But let's talk about what happens next, because the main little vamp is two chords back and forth. And what you do, got it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I have to when I yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you do that change, make sure keep your second finger in contact with the fourth string. It's basically sliding,
Oh, okay.
so you don't have to rebuild that whole thing from scratch.
Okay.
And then make sure I mentioned this too in that little tip. On both of these chords, the first two notes are open. In the case of the first chord, the first three are open.
Right.
And so that means you don't have to hurry to the chord at all, but you want to make sure not to let go, particularly of the second one too early, because the last note on the second chord is a fingered note. It's not an open string.
Right.
And quite a few times when you played it there, that note was open. You were already moving to the next chord, and you were not getting the last note as an A. You were getting a G in there, and you have plenty of time to let that note ring before you have to let go of that chord. You have three open notes on the next chord,
Right.
so there's no reason to let go of this early. Matter of fact, it's even better to let go of it late, so that last note doesn't get cut off until you've hit the bass note of the next chord.
Okay. Okay. So that's coming back
Right.
up
Right.
to here.
Yeah. So hang on to the sixth note that you play on the lower chord
Yep.
as long as you can.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's much better.
Is that better?
Get the idea though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you just got to work on your right hand. The accuracy of your right hand needs a little bit of work now on this. But your left, but that's okay because you're obviously concentrating on what we just talked about with your left hand.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll have people practice this pattern without changing chords. Just just leave it there. I even just play like an A minor 7, a
Yeah.
A minor 7.
Oh.
And focus on your right hand. Yeah. Then the next trick with this is not feeling it in 6/8 time, so when you play the A minor 7, you're not really hearing Scarborough Faire, which is why I'd suggest practicing with that so that you're not kind of blurring it with the song, because when you hear these two chords, the song starts kind of like running through your head, and that can be a distraction to getting this picking pattern really solid.
Yeah.
So here's what it sounds like on that chord, right? And see, that doesn't bring Scarborough Fair into your head necessarily, because that's not a chord that even happens in the song. But you got to get more solid on that picking sequence.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have to avoid tapping with the bass notes. That's 6/8 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, but that's what your body and your brain are going to want to do because of that bass note.
Yeah.
And so you have to feel 3 beats in there. 1, 2, 3, 1, and feel it as 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, which means that second bass note is on an and.
Right.
And so it's sometimes I would say, and the main suggestion I was going to get to when you're trying to sing this and put it together is practice just strumming quarter notes with these changes. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? See, now that seems weird. That sounds weird. I mean, even the chords just don't sound much like the song when you're hearing all those notes together.
Right.
But when you start playing this pattern, what you want to do is establish 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and make sure you're feeling that when you do the pattern just on A minor 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then when we do that with the real chords, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then when we bring the words in there, are you going to Scarborough Fair? 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And so you gotta feel it like that, which goes against the grain of what you're picking.
Okay. So think about it in 1 and 2 and 3.
Yeah, exactly. And try to even tap those beats if you can with your foot or your head, or just make sure you're feeling 3 beats. That's gotten a lot better in just the last 5 minutes too, that picking pattern. That's good.
Well, that's
So slow down a little bit. Slow down here too, because now
okay.
crank it down a little bit for this. Yeah.
Okay. It's
So yeah, try to hang on to that G in the bass when you do those two. Don't let go of that bass note. That should make that even easier.
yeah.
That way your fingers had a better reference point. Yeah. Careful. Do it again. Do it one more time. Make sure your thumb, make sure your thumb hits the right string on that hammer on. It's not really a hammer on, but on those pinches, when you go to the second, when you add the two notes,
Yeah.
your thumb wasn't getting to the fourth string. It was hitting the fifth string, which was dead.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was better though. Yeah. 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 And then, of course, you're just going back to the first chord, that same configuration of these two fingers, just back up the neck that you just came from. Yeah, that's okay. And don't forget, the first thing you got a bass note. You got open notes
Yeah.
in that chord. You know, just keep rolling. Don't worry about getting there so fast.
Okay.
Yeah. Open.
You have to let that go.
Yeah. And then keep working on your right hand on three fingers. Your third finger.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, you kind of drifted back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, three
Yeah,
fingers.
so on one hand, I kind of I kind of think of this song as a fairly basic thing, but it's got like 8 or 9 different loose ends that you have to keep tabs on.
Yeah.
And so it's not anyway, it's more complicated than it seems. I mean, before I ever taught this to anybody and I just started playing it, I just thought, oh, there's nothing to this is nothing to this. It's really cool. But then when I started showing it to people, I got a whole new perspective on it, that it's like, oh, you got to remember, not everybody gets stuff the way you do sometimes, and it's like, and I had a new appreciation for it, for how difficult it was once I started working on it with students, because you gotta just process so much stuff. The multitasking is serious in this.
Yeah. The stuff you're processing, though, is it seems like it's all based on pretty the same principles.
Right.
Working on other things, right?
Right, and that's why it's like, work on the right hand part separately. Get to where that's an automatic thing. You don't have to think about it. And then you think, so that's, we can break it down into components. Is the thing, and make sure that each one is not taking up too much brain power. That's what happens here. Is all of a sudden you're doing 5 things, and each of them's taking up 25% of the available brain power. Well, it's like, oh, that's. I'm on overload,
Left at the end, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the song is the application of the same principles, right?
Yeah, there are only like 5 or 6 measures that have something significantly different. Not even significantly. Like, there's a little passing bass note that happens going to the C chord the first time. Right, what we have here is this, right? Our normal 2 measures. Are you going to this measure of G? Scarborough. That measure is like a separate little element. Now we have the same little riff, Faire. And it goes right from there to a C chord, parsley. And that C chord is just the same picking pattern. And then there's just an A minor, a regular A minor, I think. So that measures nothing. But now we have to measure there's 2 pinches, the 3 pinches, C and 2 Ds. Mary Ann. So that's just 3/4 note grabs.
On the beat. Those are all on the beat.
All on the beat. Yeah, C and 2 Ds. And then we have back to our vamp. After 2 sets of this, we have a little quick passing bass note. Remember me. It starts, we have 4 normal notes. But then we have the last 2 notes are notes walking up to the C. And that C, I think, is just a normal pattern. To the one who lives. Then we have a measure with this descending harmony, which kind of fits into something we were talking about a half an hour ago, where I'm playing two notes. I'm playing a C and an E, which is what interval?
The third.
And that continues parallel. They both go down one note at a time. It goes from C to B to A to G, and the E part goes E, D, C, B. Slow down, you move too fast. Got to make the morning last. He used the same little principle in there of notes in thirds descending. You hear that same pair of notes ascending all the time. The little walk up in Alice's Restaurant, it's the same in Blackbird. So those are all those same parallel thirds.
Okay.
Now they're actually an octave apart because of the bass, but that's all that is. So that's a common thing. Not just in guitar, it's easy to do on the guitar, but it's common to do on the guitar. But that's kind of does touch into that our whole harmony idea. So yeah, there are really only like 5 or 6 other measures that have something unique about them that makes them not just fit into the pattern.
Right. So from the C on there, just sort of play, sing that along where the words are.
Yeah, and so what we have, I'll do a whole verse in just a second.
Okay.
Sometimes when there's a break in the words, we have a little embellishment on the guitar. Remember me to the one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. I'll do a whole verse now a little bit slower. I may not be note for note for what's in the tab, but it'll be really close. Oh, so the introduction, right? And now the introduction is much easier with this fingering because then you're just going to add your third finger. Then drop the whole thing down essentially to a C chord, but you don't need any of the rest of these. And then that brings us into our little vamp. That is our 2-measure thing. So gotta make sure you're feeling 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and Okay, think you can put that together?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, that's great. All right, Scarborough Fair, and I'll work through the sounds of silence.
Yeah. Last thing on Scarborough Fair, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this. I probably didn't put this. I don't think I knew this at the time when I put that lesson together, which was quite a few years ago. But Paul Simon spent quite a bit of time in England, right? When things were not going well for them here and stuff like that. He even released an album over there called the Paul Simon Songbook that had a lot of the songs that eventually became hits over here. So there was and he was hanging out with all the English folk guys, and this was Al Stewart and John Renbourn and these guys. And another guy who was way into all this traditional stuff named Martin Carthy. Probably never mentioned Martin Carthy before, But he was eventually in a really shortly after that got in a really cool old English band called Steel Eye Span, and this is basically his arrangement of Scarborough Fair. This picking and all this other stuff, Paul learned from him. And then, now Paul did write that little counter melody, the thing that he called canticle, right? On the side of a hill in the deep forest green. You know, they've got that second thing going on that is completely original and was Paul's, composition. But Paul eventually tried to copyright this whole thing, and Martin was not happy about it because Martin says this song is 500 years old. You know, you cannot copyright this, any more than I could. And I think I forget how that resolved, but there was definitely a contention involved with Paul trying to claim ownership over this piece that he clearly learned from Martin Carthy. Now he did add something else to it, but anyway. So if you're bored sometime, you could read up a little bit more on the conflict of ownership questions of this piece or this arrangement, because you can definitely track down Martin Carthy's recording of it, and you'll hear it. Yeah, it's Carthy, Martin Carthy.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I'm pretty sure he's still alive, but he was kind of one of the other folkies in that circle in London.
Yeah.
So.
Well, those questions must come up in folk music becoming popular music, not too infrequently, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, so many things. There are famous pieces, popular pieces, that were based on symphonic stuff. The one that pops into my head is "Stranger in Paradise." The melody, bum bum ba da 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 da. That's a piece by Alexander Borodin, a Russian composer from the late 19th century. That somebody turned into. It became a pop hit in the 40s or 50s.
Uh-huh.
And somebody copywrote it, I'm sure, or copyrighted it is how the right term of that that conjugation, I forget, is as this song "Stranger in Paradise." There's another famous one based on a Tchaikovsky thing. Da 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 da. No, that's Rachmaninoff. Oh, there's something else based on him too. Anyway, so all this, it's there's a lot of questionable stuff. Then there's the Jimmy Page story of what Led Zeppelin, what he claimed that he wrote, which is monumental. The lawsuits that came up against Jimmy Page and stuff are famous because he was many times, at least a dozen times, he took ownership credit for stuff that he heard from other people, and just
Stairway to Heaven, right?
well, yeah. And now that one, you know what, I kind of side with Led Zeppelin on that one, because that chord progression that happens in the beginning, even though it did come from this spirit tune called Taurus, that's a fairly generic progression. It's like, it's a minor thing with this descending bass line. Johnny Rivers, Summer Rain, remember that song?
Yeah.
That's that same progression. It's the minor chord. So a minor chord with a bass line descending chromatically by half steps goes back. I mean, that actually goes back a couple hundred years too. I mean, classical people were doing this. So,
Yeah.
But in the case of Stairway to Heaven, the reason I would kind of side with Led Zeppelin is because 90% of that song is, well, it's almost all generic kind of stuff too, but it was the assembling of all those parts into is an absolute masterpiece,
Yeah.
and that opening, as distinctive and unique as it is, or as iconic, I guess, as it is an important part of the song, but it's not. I mean, the vocals that Plant does in there and stuff, and the lead when they come in with this. I mean, the lead that he put together at the end is also anyway, so yeah, but the ones he absolutely stole, one was "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You," which showed up on a Joan Baez album in like 1962, and Joan opened for them. I mean, when they were on their way up, I mean, they knew her and they knew this, and that was, and Joan properly gave credit to a Berkeley songwriter named Anne. I'm not going to remember her last name, who wrote that song. Well, after a lawsuit, her name is now on all Led Zeppelin. Every published piece of music that says "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You" on it has her name listed there, along with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. So it cost them millions and made her a fortune, thankfully. Because
Yeah.
but
They won the Stairway to Heaven suit, didn't they?
yeah. So the Spirit, the family, Randy California was the name of the guitar player in Spirit, and he died unfortunately in a horrible, trying to save his son from drowning in Hawaii, and I think the son was saved and Randy didn't make it. But anyway, so Led Zeppelin prevailed in that case. Yeah.
Huh.
But,
Well,
but they
always something interesting.
And then, my last laying into Jimmy Page story is they have a really cool instrumental on the fourth album called Black Mountainside. That is it's in a dadgad or maybe double drop D tuning, I forget, but it's also it's an old English folk song that everybody in these clubs in London in the early '60s was playing, called Black Waterside. And Bert Jansch, who was the guy who was in Renborn's band Pentangle, was the one who kind of made it famous. But everybody there kind of played it. Al Stewart has a version of this on one of his albums, and Al was the one who taught it to Jimmy Page. Well, Jimmy couldn't get it right. He came close, and so he put it on a Led Zeppelin album, changed the name to Black Mountainside, because it was not close enough to where people would hear it and say, that's just him screwing up Black Waterside, which is exactly how it materialized. And, so a lot of people look at that as another Jimmy Page classic composition. All right, I'll get off my Jimmy Page.
There's a million stories in the Naked City or whatever that
Yeah.
whatever that was. Yeah. So that's fun. Okay, we are.
All right, is that enough to keep you busy for a week?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. This is fun. This is fun. I get inspired every once in a while seeing these
Oh, I love that because it's
kind of things, and I'm always amazed at your incredible knowledge and communication about that. I really am. Just it's phenomenal to me. But anyway, so it's fun.
okay.
So next week, I think, is just a regular week. I think we're going to be right here.
Okay.
So
Good.
I
And
will
I'll send
get through the Sounds of Silence. That's a lot of fun